Today I'm here with my dear friend, Nathalie Brown. She is the Executive Creative Director of VMLY&R, and she's also on the Executive Creative Jury of the New York Festivals. So let's just dive right in.
All right.
Tell us about The Gap.
The Gap. Ooh, wow, you really dug deep for that one.
Tell us about The Gap.
All right, The Gap was one of my first jobs.
And you worked the jeans wall.
I did work the jeans wall. They loved to come in after you'd spent so much time neatly arranging them, and somebody would come and pull the middle pair of jeans and
that was me.
Tell you, start all over again. The Gap was an amazing experience. I started working there, I was probably maybe 14 or 15, whatever was like the legal age to be working at the time. It taught me so much. One of the most interesting things I think I learned working there was the head of whoever took care of making sure that shoplifting didn't happen was someone that they had caught shoplifting. And that was such an interesting thing as a 14 or 15-year-old, was that they took someone who was this apparent criminal and turned him into the head of this department, because who better to learn from than somebody who was on the inside. And I remember thinking at that age, just what an amazing, talk about creativity, really looking at things from the other side and turning that into the head of that department.
Okay, so keep that thought.
All right.
And tell me, how did that influence The Ball Is in Her Court?
The Ball Is in Her Court.
So tell us about that first for Bimble. Tell us what it was, how you got to it.
Sure. The Ball Is in Her Court is the Super Bowl spot that we did last year for Bumble.
The world tells you to wait, that waiting is polite, and good things will just come. But if I waited to be invited in, I never would have stood out.
The most exciting part of that is it was the first all-female led, creatively led Super Bowl spot ever done. So that was very exciting to be part of that. I think it's again, looking at things from the other side.
From the other side, that's what I thought is.
It's really, and I think that's what's amazing about having used Serena Williams for that, is she is someone who's always looked at things from the other side. And, Bumble as a brand is all about making that first move. And that's something that she embodied. So not only does she look at things from the other side, but she's never afraid to take that first move.
What do New York festivals mean to you?
First of all, I'm a born and bred New Yorker, which is really funny.
No.
Yeah, who didn't know that? So first of all, I love, that it's a festival that's, taking place in New York City. And I just think it really embodies excellence in creativity. So I'm really excited to be part of this year's jury.
How important do you think award ceremonies and award competitions are in our industry?
It's a really good question. I think they're really important. I think they're important not only for clients. I think it validates their decisions. I think it makes the people who work so hard to get that work sold through. I think it keeps the level of standards of what is excellent creative, and makes us strive harder every year. Shit, that was a great idea. I want to beat that. I want to top that. I want to make something that's even better next year. So I think it's important.
And do you find that your clients agree? Are clients always on board with you?
Not always. I think sometimes it takes a little bit to get them around to that. I think once they see it and they get a taste for it, once you've been bitten by the bug, then you're
right, they want to be on stage too.
Then they want to be on stage too.
And do you think it really does lead to better work?
I do. I really do. And I think you have to have that drive. You have to have that hunger. And that's something that I'm always striving with my team to get. So
we talked about The Gap.
Yeah, I'm still.
The Gap.
I'm still floored how you got there.
The Gap leads us to Serena. But now let's go back to your very first awards in summer camp.
Okay.
And tell us about summer camp. What did that do for you? What did you learn in summer camp?
Summer camp is amazing. Summer camp, I think you learn a lot about being part of a team. For me, summer camp was 8 weeks. You were sleeping away from home for 8 weeks and...
Kind of like working on a new business pitch.
Yeah, for 8 weeks, sometimes 12. And you're stuck with a group of people that you may not like, and you're living with them, you're eating with them, you're sleeping with them, you might be like in a tent with them somewhere.
But you have to make it work.
You have to make it work. And I think that is such a valuable experience. And I think it teaches you independence at such a young age. It's like you could wear 2 different shoes. No one's going to say anything to you. There's no parents there. You could not brush your teeth for 3 days. You can do whatever, like no one's there. And it's sort of, I say this about my kids who are also, very big into sleepaway camp too. But it's sort of guided independence, like they think they're free. But like there is somebody watching over them. But in their minds, they're like completely free. And there's something really great about that.
So I love the notion of teamwork. The notion of, and teamwork in the way you've described it, is not about kumbaya. It's about like, I might not like that person, but we all have to get through this together.
We sure do.
So how does that, relate that specifically to the creative process? So in an agency, big, small, makes no difference. In an agency, you have a client, you have other people, you have, relate that to the creative process. How does teamwork
so many of my, the brands that I work on, it's not even just our agency. So forget like that I have to deal with like our agency and our clients. So many times we're partnered with other agencies, media, and we all have to come together and we all have to unite as one front to band together and present the best solution, for our clients. And that is teamwork. And it's finding, whether it's, I don't want to say compromise because I don't think compromise ever gets to the best thing. I think it's like we all have to find, put on our big boy and girl pants and just get to the best resolution and what's best for our client.
And how does being a mom affect your creativity?
You mean like why was I doing a TikTok last night at 11 o'clock when I got home?
Well, good. So tell us about it.
Being a mom is the best thing.
So you learned about TikTok from who?
Probably
Did you learn
both.
from your kids?
Probably I learned about Musical.ly from my kids, which then became TikTok. And I was able to come into the office and know the difference. Like I knew that Musical.ly then became TikTok.
Good for you.
So
very few people know that.
But I know that from them, and it's interesting, like which one comes first sometimes for me is like, I'll know things either from home or I look really cool at home because I knew something from work that I can tell them that I knew.
But having kids who are growing up completely different generation, in fact, really 2 generations back. So their generation is going to have a bigger impact than millennials, Z, or anything else.
They're more woke than we ever were.
How do you define woke?
So the other night, my daughter sits down and tells me that she's giving a presentation to the middle school. She's the president of the middle school.
Of course.
And she's, talking about someone who's a good influence to her. And it's about someone that I don't happen to find to be a great influence. And I let her do her whole presentation to me. And I said, I'm going to act like I'm someone in the audience, and I'm going to poke some holes in your presentation in case someone asks a question like this. And I start poking holes in it. And I said, these aren't my questions. I'm just giving like example questions. And from far away in like another room in the apartment, my other daughter, who's, almost 17, says, "You're not questioning her presentation. You're questioning her choice of influence." And I would have never, she's standing up. She knew what I was doing, and she was right. She knows what I'm questioning. I'm not questioning the presentation. I didn't like the choice of who my daughter.
So how does that influence what you do on a daily basis? You come into work in the morning and a client is giving you
got to be open. You really got to be open, and you really have to understand a lot of how I deal with like how I question my kids. And, there's things that I want to say right away, like, you're really going to wear that outside? Like, you can't do that, And I really have to sort of reposition, reframe the context of a lot of things that I want to say. And they also just really keep me in check. They really keep me in check. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Good. So do you ever share your work with them?
Oh, my God. They're like my focus group of 2 at home all the time. It's the best.
Do they ever tell you it sucks?
No, I probably don't show them that work. I'm not stupid.
So tell us about some. Let's talk about some of your work. And I said, I've had the great...
I will say one other thing about my kids, though. I'm the first woman in my family who's ever had a career.
Wow.
So, on either side, mom or dad. And so for them, that is such a huge thing that, like, not only do I have a job, like, they get to see, like, mom did a commercial on the Super Bowl, mom did something for the Oscars, mom, and, like, that to me is, they're, like, proud, or, like, for them to have people come and tell me, your kids are working really hard at school because they see you as an example. Like, it doesn't come from them. Other people say that to me. Is why
By the way, knowing you
I come to work every day.
By the way, knowing you for many years like I do, it makes me proud too. Just so you know. Thanks. So let's talk about some work.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Fuck It Bucket.
The Fuck It
How
Bucket.
you got to that idea,
All right.
The insight. What was it like selling it to a client?
Yeah, so I have
Never
the
mind
Fuck
me.
It Bucket. I have the safe sex with, like, emojis having sex.
MTV.
My kids love me. Yeah, for MTV. The Fuck It Bucket was a great story. We had an idea for a pitch. We didn't win the pitch. And so still loved this idea that we had sold, that we didn't sell in, was this idea of, like, wings. You could have left wings and you could have right wings. And so we sold it into a local barbecue restaurant, Dinosaur Barbecue. And we knew that for the election that there was going to be people who were going to be left wing, some people were going to be right wing, and we knew that for the election a lot of people were not going to be in either camp, and that was the Fuck It Bucket that was made of both left wing and right wing and people who just said fuck it. And we created something called Wingalytics, and we were analyzing the election that night. And so what was great was no one's going out for election night. It's not like, Super Bowl, like no one's going out to watch the election. And this gave people a reason to go watch the election at a Dinosaur Barbecue. So their sales went through the roof. And our Wingalytics actually predicted the election, which was that the majority of people went with the Fuck It Bucket.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
It was one of the great, so I recommend that everybody, can they find it online?
Yeah.
Right. I recommend that everybody look at it just because it was so funny.
It won one of, like, the
through.
Best campaigns for, like, an election campaign.
Yeah, and getting it through was amazing. Now tell us about the safe sex emojis for MTV, because it was controversial on one hand. On the other hand, it was not controversial because it was important.
So that, again, talk about having teenagers and really understanding, like, how they talk and, really embarrassing them. But we know kids, when they talk about sex, aren't saying, like, do you want to, do this with me tonight? They speak in emojis. And so having that context, no one's going to then say, after an eggplant, and a peach, no one's going to say, hey, by the way, can you bring a condom? So it was like, how can we enter this conversation at a time when AIDS epidemic is coming back, because these kids did not grow up in the 80s when AIDS was a thing. So they're not using condoms. And so we came up with the idea to create condom emojis and created a condom emoji keyboard so that it made being part of that conversation that is just like a natural flow of, like, a donut and a banana, like the way that they would normally contextualize, having sex, made it a very easy component to add into the conversation by having, like, all these different really fun condoms to be, to add in and say, like, hey, by the way, don't forget this, this has to be part of it.
And how do you think it went over?
It went over really well. First of all, it, had no audio, so it was a global, first of all, it's a language that everyone speaks. Every teenager speaks emoji, so that was amazing. And it really resonated. It came out of a truth and insight, which I think in any great creative, when you can find that nugget of human truth, you're always going to win.
So let's follow that up, the nugget of human truth. Let's talk about your process. What's the best process that you find for getting to the best work?
Has to come from like either something you live or you know, like you feel. You have to find like what is that insight, that real truth. That's the best creative is like, why was Seinfeld so great? You know, why was Seinfeld so great? It was because it was like, fuck, I've had that happen. I didn't know that anyone else thought that, you know? And when you can find creative that does that, that's like either I've always lived that or I've felt that, you know, that's great creative to me. When you find that truth that it's going to resonate with people, that's what makes great.
And who needs to be involved in that with you? What's the best team? Does the client, is it the account people, planners, data? Like who?
Everybody. Data is so important to me.
So talk about data.
Data to me is so important.
How do you determine which data to use? How do you define that?
I think, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, 30, like sometimes I'm going to get a brief on like SMBs and I'm like, do we know if they watch baseball?
SMBs,
medium business. You know, I'm like, I want to know, do those people, like, everyone's going to give me like the random things of like.
They'll give you the acronyms.
Right. Well, no, they'll give me like the generic things about like, they have this many employees. I'm like, I want to know random things. How many times a week do they eat at the office? How many, you know, do they watch sports? What sports are they into? How many vacations do they take? Do they go to the doctor? Like, give me other things so that I can come at them like a different way in, you know? And I think that's where like data like gets you to interesting creative.
And is everybody open to that? Are clients open to giving you that data?
That data doesn't necessarily come from them. I think typically it comes more from us, from media, I think that's more where it comes from.
Right?
But I think they're always interested when the creative comes from a truth. When you can show creative that's like, I'm not just selling you this like, you're going to make a pizza oven because, you know, and it's like, what? Why are you doing this pizza oven when it has nothing to do with, you know, this other idea? It's like, oh, well, it's based in this like data that we found. It's so much easier to sell great creative that way. It's like it came from a truth.
And if I wanted to enter the New York festivals, what should I be thinking of? What work should I be thinking of that might or might not, let's assume I want to win, so I shouldn't say might not, but that might actually win?
I think it's, you know, again, it's what's going to be, I think this is work that's looked at by people from around the world, so what's going to resonate globally, what is going to feel contextual to today, what's going to feel like it cuts through, and just it's really like any advertising, but really I think we need to push the bar and just make it extra special.
So recently, Y&R, where you worked, and VML, which was both of them were part of the same family, came together, created VMLY&R. I think an agency for the future, an incredible, and it's been huge success. So tell us a little bit about that. What are the big insights that you've learned from bringing the two companies together?
I think it's such a great partnership or marriage or, you know, whatever we want to call it today. I think it's the two things that, you know, one that was an amazing, like renowned for, you know, almost 100 years, better known as a brand agency probably. And then VML that was like, I think of it as like feisty and young and like, you know, digital. And I think putting those together, it's like the perfect marriage. It's like what one really needed, the other one brought for the other one. And it's just been such a great partnership and marriage. And
you've done very well.
I've been very fortunate.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that digital has changed the creative process at all?
It's so funny because I don't even think of it as digital. To me, it's like it's all one thing.
Good.
So, it's funny. I think of it as like I don't even think of it as digital. I think it's like consumers now make their own. We're competing against consumers basically. You know, I think brands are competing against consumers. We didn't have that when it was TV and radio. No one was making TV and radio outside of that. And today you're competing against, like, if you think of your Instagram feed, if you think of anything, you have like your friends, you have like your children, your grandchildren, like everyone's on there. And then it's like, oh, and your brands. Then you have like other influences. You have TikTok. You have all of these other platforms that are competing for your attention. So I think it's a very different landscape than before.
What's the best new restaurant you've eaten
Best
at in the
new
past
restaurant, Kochi on 10th Avenue. Really small, Korean prefix, amazing. Good luck getting in.
And what's the creative gestalt that you get from it? Like, what's the creative essence that comes out of it?
Super creative. It's a tasting menu, so you don't get to choose anything. There's, courses are already chosen for you. Each one is like artful, beautiful, like delicately art directed, up until the last course, which is an ice cream pop that was like covered in sesame seeds, and it comes on this like plate that looks like a wave. Like everything was like just beautifully presented.
So from the plate to the
From
way
the
it's
plate
presented,
to
to the way it's cooked, to the ingredients, like the whole.
The presentation, the flavor profiles of like mixing, coconut with lime, like just perfect.
Very much like the work you do, right? It's all about the totality of it.
Yeah.
In the end, and then
I
the
hope.
experience that you get. Honestly, honest answer. What did you think of the Super Bowl advertising this year? Forget that our company had pieces in and
Yeah.
stuff. Just in general.
It's so funny how different Super Bowl advertising is today. I think it's
Different in what way?
I want to say it's more elevated. I think companies and brands have realized that the audience is not, 18-year-old guys like, crushing beer cans against their foreheads anymore. Like,
Oh, that would have let down.
I know, sorry. But I think it's interesting to
spend the whole
see.
night doing that.
You were the only one. It's really interesting to see, though, how brands have shifted that platform and that audience is just so different. I think there were some good ads. I love the Google spot. I think it's so great, and our friend Kate Loomis did it, so shout out to her.
Oh.
I think there was some great spots. I think just the quality of the work overall is just different.
And the controversy around stuff like Google, there's a lot written about how, great spot, but at the end of the day, they're sucking all that data out of those two poor people, and God knows what they're going to do with it.
That's what we are. That's what we're all. I mean, that's what we
could
all
be any
sign up for.
product in the world,
What do you
exactly.
think Waze is doing when when you ask for directions? That's what it's doing. That's what we've all signed up for with every piece of technology we have.
And that is, in fact, the truth.
I have nothing to hide. So, take all my data.
Great. And you're putting a lot of work in this year to the New York festivals?
We are going to put some great work in.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And I know you're going to be an awesome judge on the executive.
I'm very excited.
On the executive jury. And I just look forward to seeing all your work. I always do. I love
Thank
seeing
you.
your name attached to the wonderful stuff that you do. And
Thank you so
VMLY&R,
much.
of course. Very close to my heart. Full
Me too.
disclosure, which everybody knows, but I'll say it anyways. Full disclosure, it's very close to my heart, but important. So, Nathalie Brown, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on
Great
with
being
New
part
York
of this.
festivals. Great to hear you from the other side, and let's everybody go to the Gap and work for a week and learn something about people.
You never know what you're going to learn.
Learn about people. Thank you.
Thank you.